welcome to Modern Home Masterminds with beSpoke Brokers. I'm Shawna Glazier, designated broker and owner.
And I'm Brittainy Williamson, associate broker. Shawna and I are beSpoke real estate, but we're also your guides to modern luxury across the entire state of Arizona.
Each week, we chat with masterminds shaping the modern spaces. Do you want to get a behind-the-scenes look at your design build team's processes? Well, open communication and teamwork will lead you to a successful project.
From architects to builders, designers, and more, let's explore the art of modern living together.
All right, welcome back, Modern Home Mastermind podcast. Have you ever wondered how an architect can design a home that feels more like a work of art, perfectly harmonized with its desert surroundings? Well, today we're exploring the artistry behind architecture with architect Mark Tate.
That's right. Mark's the founder and principal of Tate Studio, a boutique architecture firm renowned for crafting modern, site-specific homes in the desert Southwest. With a background in fine arts and a passion for natural materials and contextual design, Mark's work harmonizes architecture with the surrounding landscape, focusing on views, light, and intuitive flow between indoor and outdoor spaces.
All right, welcome, Mark.
Wow, that's a great introduction. I'm blushing already.
Yeah, I want to start. I'm genuinely excited to have this conversation with you because we haven't worked with you before. A lot of the architects we have on our show, we've worked with, we've sold their properties. So we really want to get one of your homes on our resume and in our portfolio. And I'm excited to get to know you. We see you at all the award ceremonies and all these events around town. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Well, likewise. That sounds fun.
Yeah. All right, let's start with, how does your background as an artist influence your approach to designing modern homes for desert environments?
Wow, great question. Maybe I think it has to do with education, kind of upbringing in a sense. I was trained formally as an artist, not as an architect. And I think there's, I actually went to pre-architecture, a little bit of pre-architecture in college, and I was one of those kids that sitting in class and watching all the other kids. I'm trying to do algebra or something. I'm watching all the other kids in the sculpture yard making stuff, and I wanted to be down there with them having fun instead of trying to figure out sine, cosine, and tangent and all that stuff. But I think artists tend to think with their heart, emotionally, and try to create work that is rooted in feelings. So you're trying to create emotion. When you make a piece of art, you want to invoke some sort of, or to create some kind of reaction from the viewer, somebody looking at it, right? And so it tends to be a little bit more, more of an emotional experience. When you're creating a piece of architecture, it's more technical. And so I think the artist background, I would look at a piece of architecture differently. But my art background is what got me into architecture, because I could draw back in the day when everybody was drawing by hand. Every architect in town needed a drafts person. So that was my way. When I got out of college, I had a lot of kids, right out of the gate, and it was tough being a starving artist. So I was able to go to work for a couple of really well-known architects here in town, drawing for them. Sort of learned that. But as I evolved over the years, the art background was always there. That education was always there. So I look at a piece of architecture trying to create a space that evokes feeling, as opposed to just a space that encompasses an environment.
You're helping people live in art.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great answer. Yeah. So with all the trends and fads in the architecture world, how do you balance that timelessness and modernity when you're designing a custom home with the trends?
So what's a trend?
I was hoping you might say that.
No, trends, fads, we don't pay attention to any of that. We're always trying to source materials that feel right for the environment, for the house that we're designing, and that work for the client, whoever we're working for. We spend a lot of time trying to understand, what it is our clients are looking for. And so, we're not designing a house based on what we've seen somebody else in the industry do, or some magazine. Oh, that looks good. Let's try that on a house. It's never that way. It's always trying to understand what the client is looking for, and sometimes they'll bring things to us. They see materials that they like, or um, fixtures that they like, and that sort of thing. And so we try to be facilitators.
How do you get to know your clients? Do they answer a questionnaire, or how's your process?
So, I mean, you guys know this. You you have enough clients that you sell houses to. Selling a house to somebody is a very personal experience, right? Well, designing is the same way. It's you have to get to know them, and so we spend a lot of time getting to know the client. We'll spend a lot of time in the studio. We'll meet them on the site. We'll maybe multiple times. Really trying to get into their head. We ask them to share images with us. That the internet's a great place for imaging and finding images through a number of different sites, right? And you create idea books or what have you. And most of those websites we have live feeds for. So, for instance, if somebody late at night is looking through some website and they see a picture, well, they can share that with us and we see it fairly rapidly. And so it helps us to get into their head. And there's a lot of dialogue that goes back and forth, obviously. So, we rarely bring the first solution to a first meeting or to a second meeting, after we do a design. We always like to bring multiple solutions so we can have conversation about, does this work? Does that work? And that sort of thing.
That's great. Can you describe to us the concept of living in the view? And for a desert home, how do you balance privacy, climate challenges, and maximizing vistas and light?
So, we do this. We do about 25 houses a year, and we don't just work here in a desert climate. We work all over the country, and every environment has its own challenges, whether it's in North Dakota or South Dakota or North Carolina or Texas or Colorado or wherever we're working at. But the one commonality is everybody wants to be outside. Everybody wants to live outside. So if you understand the environment, you understand the challenges, whether it's heat or cold or insects or wind or, whatever the issues are. And so, we're trying to find, we have basic tenets that we apply to any given design, simple things like, I'll give one of my secrets. When you're walking through a house, I always want you looking outside. So that's what I call living in the view. So many houses, especially in the Midwest and back East, not a knock on the style of those homes, but they're all about framed windows, like somebody sits in front of a window and reads a book. Well, I want you sitting outside reading a book or sitting in a living room full of glass that I can see outside. So that's what we think of as living in the view. It says, I don't want to look at the view. I want to live in that view. And I think that's true for everybody. We're all human beings. We like to interact with nature. We like to be outside as much as we can whenever the circumstances are right. So that's what we call living in the view.
Living in the view. Love that.
Yeah. I have noticed that there's more of that out here with this indoor-outdoor living, and the ability that we have the ability for more indoor-outdoor living here year-round, it seems like. I grew up in Arkansas, and it's, like you're saying, picture window, right? So,
yeah, the differences are in Arkansas, obviously, you've had humidity challenges,
yes.
You have insect challenges,
Big time.
those kind of things. But you can still create, we've learned to kind of employ different techniques depending on whatever environment we're in. But yeah, definitely out here, we have 7-8 months of really good weather out here that we can take advantage of. We still have some seasonal insects that usually happen for a couple of weeks, a couple of times a year. But I was at a open house on a project that we finished about 6 months ago, and the client had a party for everyone, and the back doors were 40 feet wide, and they're wide open, and there's no bugs flying around, and it's evening and the sun's setting, and it was beautiful, but it was 70 degrees outside. So you don't get that everywhere, but it's still we still find ways to create that kind of inside outside
Well, that's
feel.
a treat when a project is completely finished and a client throws a little party for
Oh yeah,
you to come see the finished project. I
sure.
bet that's nice.
But they're all we got into doing houses because I got into doing houses because it was, it's relationship driven. It's not transactional. And I used to do clubhouses all over the Southwest and community centers. And I enjoyed doing that because you're creating space where life happens, right? So, if you design a clubhouse or a community center, people get married in communities and, things like that. But they're building those kind of facilities is usually transactional. You get to know people for 2 or 3 years and then it's over. And I had an opportunity about 25 years ago to do a house in a community here in Scottsdale. And I'm still friends with the person that we did that house with. She doesn't live in it anymore, but that kind of thing, that's lifelong. And that's what makes it real for us anyway.
We find that in our business too. We tend to become really close with our clients, which is nice, especially if you help them buy and sell many times over the years.
Sure, of course, yeah. You develop those relationships. I kid with with some clients, if I feel like I have that sort of latitude to be open with them, I say, hey, can I put in the contract that I or some of my staff get free use of a bedroom like once in a while, if it's in a really super cool place. Like we just finished this house. It's on a 100-acre piece of property in the middle of a 3,500-acre ranch. And it's a horse property. And so there's no fences. There's no, it's just, and I jokingly say, okay, that's the bedroom I want when
Yeah.
and it's that's the kind of thing you like.
Yeah. No, and we have clients that are very generous too. I mean,
yes.
these one clients just bought a beautiful property in Marin or Mill Valley.
Yep.
And they're like, come rent it whenever you want. It's
Yeah,
Airbnb.
that's nice.
And
There
they
you go.
kind of let us stay there on the weekend. And it's just the kindness but I think it goes to show, like, if your clients are inviting you to stay like that they really trust that the work that you're doing, and hopefully trust the work that we're doing.
Yeah. Can you walk us through your process a little bit, like from the site analysis, kind of how you deal with your clients?
The brief, again, not giving away any trade secrets.
Of course.
We want the secrets.
No, it's really basic stuff, and every talented architect knows this. Or I would like to think know this. We spend a lot of time on the site. Starts with the site, right? You have to understand the amenities that a site offers. You have to understand the negatives that a site offers, and be willing to, turn every negative into an opportunity, and every positive into, or every opportunity, or what was I saying? Every obvious good thing, every amenity. Like obviously that view, I see the mountain range. That's a great view. I see that. But then sometimes there's a neighbor next door that, how do I create an outdoor shower with a neighbor that's, 50 yards away? And we find ways to do that, wave over the little fence at your, at your neighbor. But anyway, it starts with a site, spending a lot of time, sometimes we'll go early morning, late evening, to kind of see how a site would live, right? And we'll spend a lot of time doing some sun studies, try to understand, where does the sun come up in the morning in the summertime, and, the middle of June, where is it in the middle of December, to try to understand, and, how can we, to your question earlier about, how can you be environmentally sensitive? Well, and still have, a lot of glass and that kind of thing. Well, if you understand how the sun works and understand prevailing winds and, that sort of thing, then you really get to know the site before we ever start laying things out. So starts with that, trying to understand the environment that we're dealing with, wherever it is. And then we sit down and we create building programs. We have what we call brain dumps with clients. Usually it's lunch because they can, your eyes can glaze over after a while. But the objective is to try to understand, what are all the spaces we want in the house? What are the specifics? Do we need 4 cars or 10 cars, or, do we want a movie theater or no? So you're trying to understand from that standpoint. Once we can, we understand spaces, we can dial down into the spaces. Like, okay, well, what's going in this space? What kind of furniture? What's the layout in your mind? What does it look like? Once we get that building program done, we start creating floor plans. And floor plans are a lot of fun. They're like puzzle pieces, right? Once you understand the spaces that have to happen, you build these, they're just like putting together puzzles. And so we never show clients, never say never, but we usually don't show clients just one floor plan. It's usually multiple floor plans, because there's always more than one solution to any given site. And so we want to explore those. It's fun for us. That's a fun part. And I think our clients, folks we work with, like that as well, that they can see the possible, right? So, and what usually happens, if we show somebody 3 or 4 floor plans on the first pass, they usually, well, I like this side of the house. I like that side of option 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. And then when you start putting them all together, you come up with the solution.
Collaborative effort.
Yes, exactly.
At that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then once we did that, then we move into a 3D environment. We start doing things we call white models, because now's when you have to start understanding, okay, where you think the amenities are, the views and that sort of thing. And how does it actually fit on the site? So we map the landform. We understand where the views are relative to that landform in a 3D environment. And then we start building a sculpture. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And we do the same thing with the floor plans that we might do multiple floor plans. We'll also do multiple sculptural opportunities, different roof lines, different window opportunities and that sort of thing, in a white model. We're just looking at shapes. We're just looking at massing. We're just trying to understand, how is this environment going to work on this piece of property? And then once we get that nailed down, and then we show that to the clients, well, the client might like a pitched roof, or might like a flat roof, or a hip and gable roof, or whatever. And then the same thing, you start marrying that collaborative effort. As you said, you start marrying likes and dislikes and figure it out. And then we start mapping materials onto those models and do the same thing there. Sometimes, there's 3 or 4 different color options and material options that we look at. So the whole process is really about exploring and discovering the possible, and ultimately leads us to, the eventual solution. And even that changes sometimes.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sure.
It's never finished until it's built. My wife hates that. She's just like,
As a builder,
yes,
she hates that.
Yes.
Of course.
It's never done.
Well, I would like to walk through some of your current projects, maybe some past projects, future projects. So we have a screen up here to look at some of them. Just keep in mind, some of our audience is just listening and can't see. So let's be descriptive when we're looking through them. But what are we looking at here?
This is a very fun house. This particular client came to us and asked us if we would do something that was mid-century modern, and we said no, but we'll do an evolved mid-century modern, which to me meant that, if we understand the tenets of what mid-century modern was all about, and we apply some more modern sensibilities to it, then you can create something that's modern without being stereotyped as a mid-century modern.
Mm-hmm. What if you go back one slide, I'm just curious, what is this, ground concrete and then
Yes.
exposed block, or what do we have on the side? Is that what
This
it is?
is a
This
polished concrete floor, a basalt tile, which we started using many years ago, which is very popular now. But this is a great example of how, when you walk through a house. So that's the gallery that comes in from their garage and goes down to their garage. So this is how you leave the house. I mean, you get to see that view, which I'm pretty sure you can see Prescott from there.
Looks like it.
But yeah, it's it's the lot has it's what we you might call $1 million view, but everywhere in that house you can see that view. Same here. This is another. We call them galleries. Well, we never use the word hallway and except when we say we never use the word hallway.
Yeah.
But yeah, we like to think of the space as galleries. They're opportunities for art, family photos. It's a transitional space, but it should be enjoyed and as you walk through it.
I'm gonna have to start using that.
Yeah, seriously.
It's a gallery,
This is
not
a gallery.
and especially at homes of this caliber.
This is a great one here.
Yeah.
So this is bringing the outside in.
I do love that
Living in the
you
view.
leave space for art
Mhm.
too in these homes, because a lot of modern homes that we've experienced, there's not a lot of space for art sometimes because there's so much glass or,
Well, I like to think that that's a good thing. Unless you're a collector of a lot of art,
Mhm.
then that might be a little bit of a challenge. But I think it challenges folks to be a little bit more selective about the pieces that they put
Yes.
in their house, and they need to complement the space, right? Because you walk by that, they walk by that. That's the it goes back to a bedroom, and it's just it sort of makes that space. I think you get the view on the end, you got the wood sculpture on one side of the gallery that has a very organic kind of feel to it.
It does.
Great art placement. I love this. This is how you get through this house. The stairs that go up and down is just a
Go
giant
forward
glass
one photo.
cube.
Yeah. So is this
And
coming through the front door? Like,
no,
is it no?
that's going so that you can see 4 peaks in there. I think that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
Chihuly lamp that we hung from the ceiling. And there's an open garden down below it, full of barrel cactus.
Beautiful.
Yeah, right there.
Your clients sure have identified some good lots for you to build. Your
What's
architecture home.
funny about that is many of the lots that I like the lots no one else likes. Give me the challenge, right? And many of these homes are built on lots that no one else, they didn't want to touch it because, there were too many challenges associated with it, either foundation systems that were going to be too complicated or drainage issues or what have you. And we were able to overcome those. And then, you overcome the challenge. It's always a spectacular end result. The greater the challenge, the greater the reward.
You have to come up with a creative solution.
Right.
And
yeah, you
so
can't
the whole
just
thing
throw
ends up
down.
being creative.
Exactly. Yeah.
That
Indoor
makes sense.
gardens, we like to do that. Art placement. Very selective, right? So you've got very few walls. And I like to think that the house is the backdrop. The house is just, it's a beautiful piece of architecture, but it really enhances the art in the space, right? You really can feel it.
It's beautiful.
That sculpture kind of looks like Gumby.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those projects
Yeah.
with us.
Sure.
All right. We like to ask a few rapid fire. Are you up for
Oh
that?
no.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy. All right. Which do you prefer, morning or evening light?
Oh, that's like asking me what kind of music I like. I can't. That's depends on the lot. Depends on the site, right? I like all light.
All right.
Light is a good thing. What's your favorite architectural era?
Yeah, I don't have one.
No.
See, this is that trick question. It's like, what's your favorite song? Who has a favorite song? What's your favorite color? I don't have a favorite color. I like all.
He
colors.
doesn't like our rapid fire.
Right?
So far,
All right.
you're not stumping me.
Okay. Go-to source of design inspiration.
Say that again.
Go-to source of design inspiration. Where are you?
What's your muse?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so many of them. And, many of them, Ralph Rapps and Al Beadle. Is that what you're asking me? Like,
Yeah, that can, if that's your
Yeah.
inspiration.
I see inspiration. I'm fortunate enough, I'm blessed enough to live on a large piece of property out in the middle of the desert. And, I'll go walking around the property and see little things, a pot shirt or something that's been there for 800 years, or, the way the way a hummingbird built a nest in a tree. I took a picture of that recently. I'm like, wow, that's architecture.
Mhm.
That's true organic
It is.
architecture right there. But I usually find inspiration in little things, in just little things, and it's not necessarily things that inspire me. Oh, that I could turn that into a great piece of architecture. It's just it's life inspiration. It just makes you get up and, oh, this is cool. I want to go find something else that I haven't seen today, and that just sort of gets the creative juices going, and then it sort of just happens
I love that.
naturally.
It's interesting that you're getting inspiration for such little things, but you're creating such big spaces.
Yeah, well, it's all architecture. It's
all
every
art.
every creature needs shelter of some kind. From the little lizards that build the tunnels in the ground. That's architecture.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way.
It
Now, I
is.
haven't built a tunnel house yet. That's still on my list. But,
That should have been one of my questions.
yeah.
What's your favorite feature or space in your own home?
Oh, my art studio. Yeah, so we just recently moved into a new house that my wife, my lovely bride, built. And it has the main house, and then it has an art studio attached, but kind of next to it. And I'll spend most of my time in the art studio. My wife calls me the neighbor. And I kid her. I told somebody one time, I said, I think I posted it on my Instagram. I said, my wife calls me the neighbor. This is my happy space. Occasionally she'll bring me cookies. And I thought, well, but that's my favorite spot in the house. But everywhere in the house is inspirational in one way or another.
All right. What is one word or phrase that you would use to describe your design philosophy?
Simple. Make it simple. Keep it simple. The KISS principle. Don't overthink it.
That's great advice for life, too.
This is true.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining
This
us
was fun.
today. This was wonderful.
This was fun.
We are going to link all of your contact information in our show notes, but if you wouldn't mind telling our guests where they can find you.
You can find us in the lovely village of Cave Creek in north of Phoenix. And our studio is in a place called Stagecoach Village, new studio. And our phone number, if you want to call our studio, is 480-948-3517.
And then you have a wonderful website as well.
Thank you.
So we'll link that for everybody.
We have some good folks that run that for us. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
All
This
right.
was fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for today's episode of Modern Home Mastermind. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and rate.
Thanks to our guest for sharing his insights and to you for learning about everything modern with us.
And if you're ready to take the next step in your real estate journey, please reach out to us at beSpoke Real Estate. And until next time, keep living, loving everything modern.